So do I have to do anything to? I can never remember. So those are the way they should be. Okay, this is the Assembly. I almost said Senate. This is the Assembly Natural Resources Committee meeting for June 21st. We are going to begin as a subcommittee, and I understand Mr. Dutton is available. Let me make a few announcements today. We have a proposed consent calendar, items 2, 8, 11, and 12. We will take that up after a quorum is established. We have 8 bills today. The hearing is being televised. And with that, I will ask Mr. Dutton to come forward. And if a quorum arrives during your testimony, we'll interrupt. Otherwise, we'll await a quorum to take a motion on your bill.
That's perfectly acceptable, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members, SB 1402 will seek to improve communication between the California Air Resources Board and the parties that regulate it.
Is that right?
This bill would require carbon assessing penalties to provide a clear explanation of how CARB determined the penalty levels. It would also require CARB to develop a written penalty policy and ensure consistent treatment of all violations. We believe these changes will help regulated parties to better understand CARB's penalty policies. I'm happy to accept proposed clarifying amendment as an author's amendment that will address CARB's concern about some of the costs associated with the bill. This bill has received unanimous support in the Senate, and I would respectfully request an aye vote. I have with me here John Dunlap. He's with Californians for Enforcement, Reform, and Transparency. He'll provide some additional testimony if it pleases the chair.
Mr. Dunlap.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. John Dunlap. I'm a former chairman of the Air Resources Board, and I'm testifying, as the Senator said, in support of 1402. We think it's an excellent bill at moving transparency and consistency to the fore on the CARB compliance program, which is an important program, as you all know from your service, Mr. Chairman, at Cal EPA. The CERT group is 17 trade associations. We all think it's a good bill. We've been working with folks, a broad coalition, including the folks within the Air Resources Board, and have opened a dialogue and communicated with them. So we would urge your support for this bill. We think it's important and necessary.
Okay, thank you. Other witnesses in favor?
Mr. Chair, members, Phil Vermeulen representing the engineering contractors and the independent waste oil collectors. We're also in strong support and urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any opposition? Hearing none, we will take that under advisement until we have a quorum and then seek a motion at that point. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next we have I didn't call on committee members' comments and questions, by the way. I assume you'll shoot a spitwad at me or something.
They'll want to be added as co-authors.
Okay. Well, just remind me of that when the motion is made, okay? Yeah. Mr. Wright. Good afternoon.
How are you? Today we have SB 1224. In the words of famous last words, this is a relatively simple bill. What we're attempting to do is put in statute the ability for air boards to mitigate, in some instances, the nuisance regulations. We have no opposition. There's significant business support for the bill. We've been working with the air districts in order to make sure that we didn't crowd out their ability to deal with nuisances. This started, Mr. Chair, members from, in some cases, we had a guy in Oakland who had 90 visits from air districts over the same thing, and that means that that business had to slow down and almost stop. You know, the perception of some of the districts now is that they have to, in effect, investigate each complaint, even if they know that it's the same thing that they may have seen 2 or 3 days before. So this does not prevent the investigation of the nuisance or the odor or the thing that was being raised, but if they know that that business is compliant, it gives them more flexibility in how they, the district themselves, set up the regulations. I have witnesses in support today, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. First witness in support.
Yes, James Simonelli, Executive Director of the California Metals Coalition. I think what's important to point out in this bill for businesses is if there is an issue that the Air District finds, the business is expected to fix that issue. So we're not talking about where the district comes out and there is an odor issue. We're talking about where the district comes out repeatedly and there's nothing to be found. And if the business, and we have cases in the analysis where a facility has 80, 90, even one with 200 visits, and the Air District finds that there's no issues with it, we'd like to see the Air Districts find a way to handle that instead of having to do the same thing every single time. So,
Thank you. Next witness.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Mock. I'm president of Thorock Metals Company. We recycle and process aluminum for the foundry and die casting industries. I'm also the current president of the California Metals Coalition, and I'm in here to support our members on this particular legislation, and I would like to urge an aye vote on behalf of the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next witness.
Thank you. Catherine Brandenburg with the Flanagan Law Firm representing the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries. We're also in support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Gregg representing the California League of Food Processors. We too are in support.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? With all due respect to the author, I have to call for it. Any opposition? Apparently not. Any questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Logue.
Yeah, first of all, I commend Senator Wright. This is a really good bill. When we went to Reno, Nevada last year and interviewed businesses that left California, there was one that testified where a regulatory authority had come to their place of business every week. And what they had done is they'd hired sniffers. And this guy was making bread. So they hired sniffers 1 block away. And if they could smell bread a block away, they fined him every week. So he took his 450 jobs and he went to Nevada. So I commend you on this bill. It does give some relief in this field because the jobs that we're losing is beyond belief because of overregulation and zealous overregulation. So this kind of helps us bring some sanity to this issue. And I think there'll be a lot of businesses taking a look at this that want to come here, and will help them make that decision in the positive. So I commend you for it.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I mean, I said, and I want to reiterate that this does not give a business a license to go and emit harmful materials. It doesn't stop the district from enforcing the Clean Air Act and all of the other things that would take place. What it does do is it says that the district would look and make sure that that business was compliant. But if you're a bread baking facility and someone says, I smell bread, or we had an experience where someone was a coffee roasting company that was forced out of business because people said they smell coffee. I mean, at some point there's got to be a rationale to make sure, again, that if there's a harmful thing, if an oil refinery shuts down scrubbers, they should and would be fined, and this bill would not preclude that. If someone, we had some metal companies, and they would make things, Mr. Chair, and then they would just sit it outside. And during the cooling process, you would end up where you had potentially caustic or toxic material. This would not preclude that. What this attempts to do is for that business that is compliant from receiving 100 complaints, many of them are nuisances because people are just trying to shake down that businesses. That's not always the case, but it could be, and it does not preclude the district from, verifying that the health and safety requirements are being met, and that this is not a business that's trying to profit without following the rules that we have here in California.
Okay. Thank you very much. We will, again, take this under advisement until we have a quorum, and then I'll accept a motion to proceed. So
I appreciate that. And I said it already, but we work, because of moth, I guess, we worked with the air boards so that there's no opposition from the people who would be operating under this regulation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll accept that as a close.
Yes.
So, thank you very much, Mr. Wright.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Senator DeSaulnier.
I'll respond to
Mr. DeSaulnier.
Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chair. SB 1454 follows on a couple pieces of legislation that I've done in the past. Prior legislation specified that plastic bags could not market themselves as biodegradable, and they could only do compostable if they had actually met the standards from the American Society for Testing and Materials. The importance of this is that we want the California consumers to actually realize that there's a standard, that the standard is agreed to, and that biodegradable is, until we have a standard, is not acceptable. So
There's a
we've
smell,
got sniffers.
electrical burning smell. Oh, okay. Poof. No, apparently we had a moth that flew into a light bulb, so never mind.
Maybe you should ask the air district to come out and sniff. Would that last bill apply? Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
In any case, we've had some bipartisan support on this bill. We think it's important for the confidence of California consumers, and it gets away from the potential for greenwashing. And with that, I'll turn it over to our witnesses.
First witness.
Mr. Chair, members, Brian Early with the environmental organization Californians Against Waste. Current law requires that manufacturers of plastic bags and food packaging meet an ASTM standard specification for the term that they are using, such as ASTM D6400 for the claim compostable. Current law does allow for new claims as long as they go through the process of getting a new ASTM standard specification. This is important because without this law, some manufacturers in the past have added additives which they claim hasten degradation, but don't actually, and they don't meet a standard that follows that term. And again, as the Senator said, the claim biodegradable is not allowed because it's too vague and there is no standard. And the FTC has recently stepped up enforcement against biodegradability claims because they feel that most are false. And again, this bill would simply expand the scope of current law from bags and food packaging to all plastic products to create a level playing field. I urge your support.
Thank you. Next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Casey Kaneko of Suter & Associates on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco, which, as you may know, has one of the very few municipally sponsored residential composting programs in the entire country. And SB 1454, I think, will add some clarity so that the residents of San Francisco and its businesses will know what they can put in their compost bins and what is not safe to do so. So we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Good afternoon, Chairman. My name is George Kapouris. I am with Metabolics. We produce Morel bioplastic, and we are in support of this bill.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in favor? Any witnesses in opposition? Any comments or questions from committee members? I'll comment that I have mixed emotions about your bill, I'll be honest with you, although I am going to support it, only because I think the whole question of compostable plastics is a really complicated one, and I realize you're just dealing with truth in advertising, and I think that we should support that. But I do want to say that it's a complicating factor in the recycling stream. Frankly, I've generally been against compostable plastics because of the lack of infrastructure. San Francisco being an exception with their very specific utilization of compostable plastics, and it confuses the consumer, and it is contaminant in the plastics waste stream. However, it's a reality, and it is going forward, and assuming that people are going to be marketing products with this label on them, I think we need to make sure that they know what they're getting. And so I think, and I realize that's your very specific intent. So when we get a chance to accept a motion, I'll be supporting it. So
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I respect and recognize your expertise on this matter. I'd be happy to talk to you about it further.
Great. Thanks. Well, I'm not saying you're trying to solve the bigger problem. I understand you're trying to solve a specific problem. So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hollingsworth. We are looking at item 13, SCR 75, wildfires in federal lands.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman and members, SCR 75 is a common sense resolution that has received broad bipartisan support so far in the Senate. What it would do is declare that there is an ongoing emergency in California due to the threat of wildfire. It would call on the federal government to take immediate measures to prevent imminent catastrophic wildfires and request the governor to advocate at the federal level for the United States Forest Service to undertake prevention and maintenance work in the state's federal forest lands. It has received no votes so far. I believe your analysis has come out and said that they think it would be a good idea. It's sponsored by the Regional Council of Rural Counties and has no opposition.
Okay, thank you. Have witnesses in support?
Hi, Cindy Hillary, Regional Council of Rural Counties. This is obviously a huge issue in many of our 31 rural counties that we represent, where the counties themselves as well as state lands have taken significant precautions against wildfire, but when huge tracts of federal land are within their jurisdictions, it's very challenging for them to meet minimum standards of fire safety in those areas, and this is of critical importance to those communities in those areas.
Okay, thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Comments, questions? I just say I represent some of those counties, and I'm aware of the problem. Little town of Weaverville has just about disappeared from the face of the earth several times now with fires on federal lands burning right down to the edge of town. So, and in fact, consuming some of the homes on the edge of town. So, I am aware of the need for this. So, thank you very much. We'll take it under submission until such time as we have a quorum and we can take a motion. Thank you. Oh, okay. We have Senator Kehoe's staff here to present SB 1350. Oh, excuse me. Well, SB 390 first, followed by SB 1350.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Linda Barr. I work for Senator Kehoe, and I want to thank the committee for allowing me the opportunity to present two of her bills this afternoon on her behalf. The first bill, SB 390, extends the sunset date of the existing successful Recycling Market Development Zone loan program from January 1st, 2012 to January 1st, 2022. Since its creation, the RMDZ loan program has provided 161 direct low-interest loans totaling $113 million to recycling businesses, and it's resulted in the diversion of 4.2 million tons a year of material from California landfills. It's also resulted in the creation of 2,069 jobs. This program has proven its worth and deserves to be continued. It's supported by the California Recycling Market Development Zone Association, the Regional Council of Rural Counties, and many others. It's received strong bipartisan support, and so far it has received no votes. I have with me Lisa McCumber from Cal Recycle, who's here to answer any technical questions you may have, and I ask for your aye vote.
You have any testimony, or is just available for questions?
Just available for questions.
Any witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Any comments or questions from committee members? My comment would be I helped build the program as a member of the Waste Board in the early 90s, and it's very successful. I think it needs to be more successful. We need to build on past successes, and when the time comes to, we're not amending it here in this committee, but I would ask the author to consider finding a way to add me as a co-author, because
we would be happy to do that.
Very much like to show my strong support for this program. So
thank you.
And we will take it under submission and take it up when we have a quorum. Next, we have item 7, SB 1350.
SB 1350 basically deals with public trust lands and school lands. Current law requires state agencies to report detailed information about their real property holdings to the Department of General Services, but the State Lands Commission has found it extremely difficult and costly to comply because of the unique nature of the lands that they hold. For example, the Commission holds millions of acres of tide lands, submerged lands, and navigable waterways in public trust that can't be declared surplus because of constitutional, statutory, and common law. And these tide lands have shifting boundaries that are subject to tides and sea level rise. So it's extremely difficult and costly for the Commission to provide details about the boundaries of these lands. The Commission also has about 450,000 school lands, acres of school lands, that can't be declared surplus. And again, it would be extremely costly to provide all of the details required under the reporting law. So SB 1350 will save the state money by exempting public trust lands from the DGS reporting requirements and tailoring the reporting requirements for school lands. The bill also adds findings and declarations to the Public Resources Code that are declaratory of existing law regarding the state's public trust authority over its tide lands and submerged lands. It's supported by the State Lands Commission, the California Association of Port Authorities, the Port of San Diego, the Pacific Merchant Shipping Association, and it's received bipartisan support in the Senate. Mario DiBernardo, he is here from the State Lands Commission, and Jonathan Clay from the Port of San Diego as well. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. First witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. Mr. Chair and committee members, my name is Mario DiBernardo, here on behalf of the California State Lands Commission in support of this bill. ditto to everything that Ms. Barr stated. I would just add that with regard to the reporting requirements, we currently have, or in the past have reported certain information to DGS on public trust lands, such as the unique legal character and location, general location. This would codify the current arrangement we have with DGS in terms of reporting public trust lands, but it would protect us from anyone trying to require us to provide specific parcels of trust lands, which there are public trust lands are not parcelized. If you look at a parcel map, you'll see the uplands parcelized, but the Pacific Ocean, the inland waterways, not parcelized at all. So it's virtually impossible to report this type of information. And I urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Jonathan Clay on behalf of the Port of San Diego, also in support. We're here primarily for the provisions relating to the reaffirmation of state law, just to ensure the supremacy of these types of planning documents, that they won't be overruled by local issues.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Mr. Chair, members, Tim Schott on behalf of the California Association of Port Authorities, which is comprised of the state's 11 commercial publicly owned ports. The majority of our member ports manage tidelands through agreements with the State Lands Commission, and we're very much in support of the bill.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any opposition? Any discussion, questions from committee members? If not, we will take it up when we have a quorum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And we are awaiting authors. We have several members presenting bills in the Senate, and so we will await their arrival. And I appreciate the members who are hanging in there with us. So please stand by. Okay. Presenting on behalf of Senator Wiggins. Are you going to present for Pat? Yeah. Okay, we do have author's staff on behalf of an author. And we're going to next hear item 4, SB 1142, Senator Wiggins. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. I'm Susan Boyd, staff to Senator Wiggins. She's in the district today and was unable to attend the committee hearing. SB 1142 is a bipartisan measure which will help preserve working farmlands and open space. California's farmers and ranchers are struggling to keep their lands in active agricultural production and face many challenges, including the possible loss of their Williamson Act contracts. Ensuring that these lands continue to produce food for Californians and the nation simultaneously provide many other public benefits, including support for rural economies, water supply, and quality flood control, wildlife, scenic vistas, and our agricultural heritage. The Department of Conservation's successful Farmland Conservancy program is one tool that helps farming and ranching families keep lands in agricultural production. It provides grants to purchase conservation easements from willing landowners to keep lands in private ownership, while the owners voluntarily avoid development for anything but agricultural production. However, state law prohibits these grant funds from imposing any restrictions on any commercial agricultural activities, making it difficult for the state to help landowners with such properties that could be used for multiple or seasonal purposes, such as flood corridors or wildlife habitat. SB 1142 gives the DOC flexibility to work with willing landowners by use of other existing funds as grants to protect riparian zones wildlife habitat, or flood corridors, while simultaneously keeping the farmed portions in agricultural use. This bill is supported by dozens of local land trusts and conservation groups. There is no opposition. Here today in support of the bill is Chuck Mills from the California Council of Land Trusts, the bill sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chairman Chesbro and members of the committee. Chuck Mills with California Council of Land Trusts. We are the bill sponsor. I know this committee has heard this bill twice already over the course of the last several years, and the specific body moved it out of committee last year on a 9-0 vote. Susan has done an excellent job of summarizing the key elements of the measure, so I'll simply speak to one point that has been consistently raised in each analysis on this measure. The bill fulfills an intent of the California Farmland Conservancy Program that currently cannot be fulfilled by the current CFCP fund. By creating a second funding track for that purpose, the measure obviously prepares the department to accept public resources for ag easements at a later date. However, to the extent the bill places quote-unquote cost pressures on existing bond funding, this is simply not the case. Prop 84 funds that are available to the Department of Conservation have already been appropriated. Prop 84 funds that could be used for ag easements through the Urban Greening Grants Program are going to be administered through the Strategic Growth Council. And Proposition 1E flood corridor funds are currently being tapped by 3 different state agencies for a variety of purposes ranging from habitat conservation to Central Valley flood protection. Proposition 1E funds are only impacted if the administration and this legislature chooses to appropriate funds for the purposes of SB 1142, which would still be constitutionally required to first meet the needs of strong and sustainable flood corridor protection. The measure, if it moves out of this committee, will be amended to bring on Assemblymember Sam Blakesley as a co-author, along with Assemblymember Jared Huffman and Assemblymember Bill Bonning. With that, I want to thank the committee for its time and urge your aye vote.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, members and staff. Rico Mastrodonato with the Trust for Public Land in support.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in favor? Witnesses in opposition? Comments and questions from committee members? Okay, when we have a quorum, we will take it up, and I would like to add my list to the members asking to be added on as co-authors when the opportunity arises. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
thank you. And I note that Senator Wolk has arrived. And she has SB 1334, members, which is item 6 on the agenda. You want to go ahead and present, Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, 1334 deals with the NCCPs, the Natural Community Conservation Planning Act, and it states that DFG, Department of Fish and Game, may enter into a planning agreement with any person or public entity in cooperation with a local agency. However, existing law does not provide a checkpoint in the NCCP process to ensure that such cooperation with a local agency has taken place. 1334 clarifies that DFG should check or report to confirm that this existing provision for cooperation with a local land use agency has been fulfilled prior to final approval of an NCC plan. This bill will ensure that cooperation, which is a vital component of the NCCP process, won't be overlooked early or in the process. This bill does not require a local land use agency to sign off or approve an NCCP. It does not in any way expand the authority of a local agency over the approval or implementation of the NCCP. I've worked with the Metropolitan Water District and the Westlands Water District on amendments that were accepted in the Senate to clarify on the language. 1334 includes the exact language proposed by them, and both groups are neutral on the bill. The state benefits when locals are partners in large-scale restoration projects. Local cooperation is much more likely to be achieved if the locals are engaged early in the process. This bill received bipartisan support on the Senate floor, and I respectfully request your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Before I call for any witnesses, we have a quorum now, so please call the roll.
Chesbro.
Here.
Gilmore. Here. Brownlee. De Leon. Hill. Huffman. Knight. Logue. Skinner.
Okay, we have a quorum. Do you have any witnesses in support here today?
I do. I just realized I should have checked first.
He's trying to slip away there, I noticed.
I thought I got out of this. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and other members. Paul Yoder on behalf of the Delta Counties Coalition in full support of this bill. Appreciate everything the Senator's doing to help us ensure that our local plans are integrated into the BDCP. Appreciate the willingness of stakeholders to work with the senator as this bill has moved through the process. So I would urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Next witness.
Thank you, Paul.
Next witness.
Well, Hugh Bauer on behalf of the city of Santa Rosa, and for the reasons stated, we're in support.
Okay. Any opposition or another witness in support? Oh, come on forward and talk to the mic, please.
David Moyer on behalf of the Planning and Conservation League, in support.
Push the button down that way.
Opposition.
Oh, okay. In opposition? Go ahead. Go ahead.
With Organic Sacramento. We just don't want to see this bill being used to ease properties along the Delta and as to take up farmland to acquire more land for the Panama Canal they want to put down the center of California.
Okay. Well, my only comment would be I'm very aware that Ms. Wolk, Senator Wolk, is one of the strongest opponents of that canal and export, so I would hope that this bill would not contribute to that possibility, but I'll allow her to respond in her close. So, other opposition?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Susan LeGrand, Deputy Director of Legislation for the Department of Fish and Game, and we're here opposed to Senate Bill 1334 this afternoon. We feel that this bill, as currently written, will preclude local agencies an agreement has been approved and after the plan approval. Additionally, Senate Bill 1334 would require that all covered activities be identified during the early planning agreement phase. So we would have to know which activities would want to be included in order to know which land use authority to cooperate with. And lastly, we have concern that the process could be significantly slowed down with the potential for increased litigation between some of the parties. So for those reasons that we feel that we're here in opposition to the bill. And I also have Dr. Brenda Johnson with me today. She is our state NCCP program manager, and she can answer any questions.
So is the opposition in relative to the purpose of the bill or the specific elements in terms of how it attempts to achieve that purpose?
I think that it's safe to say that it's how it's going to achieve the purpose.
Well, have you
impact with other NCCPs statewide?
So has the department attempted to work with the author to
we just recently received in our post position. Yes, we have met with the author staff last week.
Well, not just meeting with her, but I would hope that the department would seek to try to find the common ground.
We have had some discussions. Yes.
Okay. Well, as chair, I strongly encourage that. So, did you have comments?
We have 19 NCCPs in progress statewide, and it's unclear how this bill will affect them, but it likely will.
Okay. Okay. Well, my closing comment would be to strongly urge the department to work with the author. Would you like to close?
Yes.
I guess I should ask, are there any other witnesses? If not, okay. Senator Wolk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Current law requires cooperation with all local land use agencies. That has been an area of uncertainty. We believe, after having worked with various parties who have a direct interest in this, and we will work, now that we have the letter of opposition, we will certainly work with Department of Fish and Game since they are the key agency here that signs off on these NCCPs. We will certainly work with them to make sure that we're not delaying or making more complicated, as opposed to clarifying and giving some substance to the term cooperation. And that is my commitment. And I would ask for your aye vote.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from committee members? My recommendation is do pass to Water Parks and Wildlife. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Chesbro?
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Gilmore?
No.
Gilmore, no. Brownlee? Aye. Brownlee, aye. De Leon? Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Huffman? Aye. Huffman, aye. Knight? Logue? No. Logue, no. Skinner?
That bill is out. Let's go ahead and take the consent.
Thank you, Mr.
Have a motion
Chairman.
on the consent calendar? It's been moved and seconded. Can you call the roll on that, please?
Chesbro.
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Gilmore.
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Brownlee. Brownlee, aye. De Leon. Hill. Hill, aye. Huffman. Huffman, aye. Knight. Logue. Logue, aye. Skinner. Consent calendar is out.
Consent calendar is out. And the one bill we haven't heard yet, although we've only voted on one plus the consent, but that is SB 624 by Romero, and that's being presented by Mr. Huffman.
What?
Mr. Chair and members, I'll be brief. This is a simple bill. It has no opposition, but the bottom line is, in an earlier era of our state's history, we designated a state rock because of its content of asbestos and because we were taken by the commercial value of asbestos and the wonders of asbestos as we understood them in that era. Obviously, today we understand asbestos very differently as a toxic carcinogen. So this bill simply changes that by eliminating, with the committee's amendments, by eliminating the state rock. I think the bottom line, members, is that we can get along fine without a state rock, but it's probably not a great idea to glorify a known toxic carcinogen by enshrining it in that way. So with that, I will, on behalf of Senator Romero, request your aye vote.
Okay, before I ask for any witnesses, I wanted to point out that we made an error in announcing on Senator Wolk's bill that it was out. So it still needs additional votes. So if either staff or the sergeants could communicate that to her office, I don't think it's going to have a problem. I just, she left with me having said it was out. So, okay, witnesses in favor of this bill.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, thank you for giving me the honor and the opportunity to express support for SB 624. My name is Linda Reinstein. I'm the co-founder of the Asbestos Disease Awareness Organization and a native Californian. I want to bring to you the science and the truth behind serpentine as our state rock to make a compelling argument and encourage the committee to indeed vote it out. Today I represent more than 7,000 voices who have been silenced by asbestos. Now in 2003, my late husband, Alan Reinstein, was diagnosed with mesothelioma, and like many others in California, had thought asbestos had been bound and couldn't even pronounce the disease. My husband elected to go through radical surgery, removing his left rib, his entire left lung, pericardium, and his diaphragm was replaced, all when our daughter was just 10. Alan's career 40 years ago exposed him to asbestos, and during the 3 years he fought for his life, my daughter watched her father slowly die from a preventable disease. But Alan's story is not unusual. More than 10,000 people die every year from asbestos-caused diseases. Now, it's important to remember that the asbestos mining industry is no longer lucrative like it was in the 60s when serpentine was named a state rock. And the World Health Organization, the Environmental Protection Agency, and also the U.S. Surgeon General all agree asbestos is a known human carcinogen and there's no safe level of exposure. The microscopic fibers are odorless, tasteless, and indestructible. They can remain suspended in the air from seconds to days, and once inhaled can cause cancers or respiratory diseases. And that's why it's so misleading for Californians, for workers and families, because this toxin can't be identified. Worse yet, California has the dubious distinction of being the state with the highest recorded incidences of asbestos-caused diseases. And asbestos continues to impact public health, our environment, and our economy. So in conclusion, it is simple. On behalf of patients, physicians, labor, and businesses, I urge you to vote unanimously to pass SB 624 out of committee, thus signaling our state's commitment to create a healthier and safer environment. Less than half of the states in the United States have state rocks. This toxic rock will not be missed. And for every life lost to asbestos-caused disease, a shattered family like ours is left behind. We urge your support, and thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you for the testimony. And I'm sorry for the struggle that your families had to go through. Any other witnesses in support? Any opposition? The bill's been moved and seconded. I do want to comment, and I don't in any way want to trivialize the illnesses caused by asbestos. I do want to say that over the years in the legislature, it's been very frustrating to me that we go through these struggles of designation of this or that or the other thing, and really it's symbolic and has very little benefit to the public, and I think particularly at this time with all the other problems the state's facing, it's a real question. So when I first saw this bill, I threw my hands up. On the other hand, I think the solution is for us to completely delete the whole code section that refers to a state rock, so that we are taking the step to say we're not in favor of designating a state rock, not simply removing asbestos, although that would be serpentine. That would be the net effect of it. But that's the amendment that's been taken here, and with that amendment, I'm supportive. So there's been a motion, a second. Are there other comments or questions from committee members? Hearing none, call the roll.
Chesbro?
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Gilmore? Aye. Gilmore, aye. Brownlee? Aye. Brownlee, aye. De Leon? De Leon, aye. Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Huffman?
Aye.
Huffman, aye. Knight? Logue? Logue, aye. Skinner?
Okay, that bill is out. And now we need to go back through the agenda and take the items that we have not yet voted on. Beginning with item, well, you have to help me remember which ones now. SB 390, item 1. My recommendation is a motion of due pass, and I ask to be added as a co-author. I'll entertain a motion. It's been moved. Second. Moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
SB 390 by Ms. Kehoe. Motion is due pass. Chesbro.
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Gilmore. Aye. Gilmore, aye. Brownlee. Brownlee, aye. De Leon. De Leon, aye. Hill. Hill, aye. Huffman. Huffman, aye. Knight. Logue. Logue, aye. Skinner.
That bill is out. And I think next we have item 4. Is that correct?
Yeah, because 2 was on consent.
Senator Wiggins. Oh, she was on consent. No,
2
was on consent. Item 4, 1142. Is that correct?
Number 3 was done. Number 3 was amendments, by the way. Did it on amendments? Yes.
As amended, yeah.
Item number 4, SB 1142 by Ms. Wiggins, and it's due pass to Ag Committee.
We have a motion? Moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
I'm sorry, who seconded? Mr. Hill?
Ms. Brownlee seconded.
Okay. Mr. Chesbro?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Chesbro, aye. Gilmore? Aye. Gilmore, aye. Brownlee? Brownlee, aye. De Leon? De Leon, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Huffman? Huffman, aye. Knight? Logue? Logue, aye. Ms. Skinner? That bill's out.
That bill is out. I believe next we have item 5, SB 1224 by Senator Wright. Okay, the motion is to due pass. Who moved? Mr. Hill moved, and is there a second?
De Leon.
Mr. De Leon seconded. Please call the roll.
SB 1224, due pass. Chesbro.
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Gilmore. Aye. Gilmore, aye. Brownlee. Brownlee, aye. De Leon. Aye. De Leon, aye. Hill. Aye. Hill, aye. Huffman. Aye. Huffman, aye. Knight. Logue. Logue, aye. And Ms. Skinner. That bill's out.
Okay, well, let's just continue in order and open the roll on item 6, SB 1334.
SB 1334, due pass to Water Parks and Wildlife by Ms. Woke. And the absent members, De Leon. De Leon, aye. And Knight and Skinner.
Okay.
1, 2, 3,
That
4.
bill is out.
That bill's out.
That bill is out. Next we have item 7, which is SB 1350. Ms. Kehoe, the motion is, I'm recommending is due pass. It's been moved by Mr. De Leon, second by Mr. Hill. Please call the roll.
Chesbro.
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Gilmore. Aye. Gilmore, aye. Brownlee. Brownlee, aye. De Leon. De Leon, aye. Hill. Hill, aye. Huffman. Huffman, aye. Knight. Logue. Mr. Logue, aye. And Ms. Skinner. That's out.
That bill is out. Item 9 is next, I believe, and that would be SB 1402, Mr. Dutton, and the motion I'm seeking is due pass as amended to judiciary. Moved by Mr. Huffman, seconded by Mr. Hill. Please call the roll.
Chesbro.
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Gilmore.
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Brownlee. Brownlee, aye. De Leon. De Leon, aye. Hill. Hill, aye. Hoffman. Hoffman, aye. Knight. Logue. Okay, Logue, aye. Co-author, Ms. Skinner. And that bill is out.
Okay, that bill is out, and I believe the final one that we do not have a motion on yet is item 10, SB 1454, Mr. Desaulnier. The motion is due pass to judiciary. Moved by Mr. Hill, seconded by Mr. De Leon. Please call the roll.
Chesbro.
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Gilmore. Gilmore, aye. Brownlee. Brownlee, aye. De Leon. De Leon, aye. Hill. Hill, aye. Hoffman. Hoffman, aye. Knight. Logue. Skinner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
That bill is out, and we will allow members to add on. Do we know if Ms. Skinner's in the? Did we miss one? I'm sorry, the final one. Item 13, SCR 75, Mr. Hollingsworth. The recommended motion is to pass.
Be adopted.
To be adopted. Moved by Ms. Brownlee, seconded by Mr. Hill. Please call the roll.
Chesbro.
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. Gilmore. Gilmore, aye. Brownlee. Brownlee, aye. De Leon. De Leon, aye. Hill. Hill, aye. Hoffman. Hoffman, aye. Knight. Logue. Mr. Logue, aye. Skinner. That resolution.
Okay, I'll wait for him. And Ms. So I will wait for additional member, Mr. Knight, to add on. So hopefully, if he's in listening distance or if his staff is, please send him. Thanks.